So today, the topic we're here to discuss is exam developments. And this is the first session. We're going to have at least 3 of them where we will share, let me say contents, share ideas that border around examination development, especially for how it relates to professional certification. Okay, so on the agenda, we have, I think, just 4 things. We have done the welcoming. What we will then do now is to introduce the topic, and then we'll go down and make presentation for the next 30 minutes or so. And then we'll rub minds together if there are, issues that we would like to discuss. By way of introduction, certification exams play a very crucial role in establishing the credibility of the skills and expertise of members within a specific industry or a profession. You can take, for instance, the people working in the medical circle. They need to get certified certain times regarding some specific kinds of skills. This is because the certification helps in ensuring that members of the public or maybe employers look on them as people who have the necessary credibility and the trustworthiness that will elicit, people to want to work with them. In coming up with certification exams, it is worthy of note that the entire examination development process is one that is a complex one, and it is very much, structured. And so therefore it requires let me say, high amount of planning and careful execution of those processes. This is because if we do this, we are almost sure that we will be able to cater for the 3 basic, should I call them the 3 basic requirements of a test, which are reliability, validity, and fairness. We discussed these concepts in the earlier session that we have held, and I think that if there's anyone that is still a little bit confused with what these things mean, maybe in the session, in the question and answer session, we'll bring those things, we'll throw more lights on them. Now, this session is specifically, even though we have, touched on what examination development or item development is in the previous sessions, this particular session is, and the 2 other sessions that follow, specifically dedicated to presenting information on what item development, or let me say examination development, is about. So therefore, the next question that will then come to our mind before we talk about examination development processes or process is, what is examination development itself? Examination development is a process that is used or followed to create a test or an examination that is designed to assess or examine candidates' knowledge, skills, and abilities, as far as it, refers to a particular subject where you are talking about an examination in a school setting, or a particular industry or field when you are talking about the industrial application. So it's simply, it's as simple as we have just said. when you create examination questions, you create a test. You have been subjected to what we refer to as examination development. Then we will then now talk about what is examination development process. The definition for examination development process is not too far away from the definition of examination development itself, because it addresses series of steps that are involved in designing an examination. This is to ensure that such exams are able to measure knowledge, skills, and abilities that are required to demonstrate to demonstrate competent practice in a particular profession. I must state that these steps are necessary because the three most important components that we mentioned of an exam that the test must be reliable, the test must be valid, and the test must be deemed to be fair. These are very important in an examination situation or for any exam. If I am to touch briefly on fairness, an exam is supposed to be fair because all the members of the profession that are expected to take that particular exam should not be in any way discriminated against, or that they should not be put in a disadvantaged position for any reason. That means that I wouldn't know which profession you are, but whatever the case is, the test should not, or your exam should not be designed in such a way that it gives advantage over, to a group over another, in the sense that you shouldn't be asking your testees to provide information to a test item that a particular group taking that exam will not necessarily need to stress over before having the right, information. I mentioned while discussing this in a previous class that there is the promotion exam I wrote, because in my place of 9-to-5 job, we usually every 3 years take a test, which you are expected to do well in order to qualify you to move over to the next pay grade. All right, so in the course of writing that test, a certain question that discriminates against some group of people was asked. And I remember a little bit well that the question was talking about asking for the date when I think Pope John Paul, when he was venerated. In the first place, for those of you who are familiar with our country, Nigeria, we have at least two major religions. You have the Christian folks and you have the Islamic guys. Now, that kind of a question is biased as far as the Islamic people are concerned. And then even in the Christian fold, we have people who are Catholics who have one thing or the other to do with the Pope. And then we have the Protestant folks who do not have anything to do with the Pope. So they are not necessarily informed or concerned about the activities that goes on in the Catholic faith. On that ground, asking them a question from such a field or content in an exam in the first place that does not have syllabus, it does not have study materials, then you have asked a question that is not fair. You have asked a question that is not, that is biased. So in every profession, I think that there are, chances that if care is not taken, questions that seem not to be fair will be asked. I mean, it behoves on the test developers, or if you like to call them test creators, to take care to ensure that their tests are valid, their tests are reliable, and their tests are fair. So, having said that, we will proceed by taking a look at some of the key steps that are involved in creating a certification exam, or if you like to say, an exam in general. The first is task analysis and job analysis. For a profession, whatever kind of profession that it is, efforts are expected to be taken to ensure that the various tasks and the various jobs that gets done in the course of practicing that profession are properly analyzed. To do this, in most cases, you need to contact people who are already practicing in that field, in that profession. And then you try to work with them to make a list of the things or the activities or the tasks that they perform, very, very critical ones, especially that anybody that is looking to be seen or deemed to be a competent practitioner in that particular industry will possess. So they make a list and they, go through them at several stages and then agree that these are the list of tasks and jobs that are performed by people who work in this particular field. When you do that, what you have concluded, what you have done is what we refer to as either job analysis or task analysis, depending on which of the ones that you have, taken. The next thing is preparing what is called test blueprint. All right, that you may also call test blueprinting. Under some circumstances, we also could refer to it as a table of specification. Now, the test blueprint is a kind of a plan, if you like, a document in which you have presented all the contents that your exam, your test is supposed to address. In an educational setting, for instance, as far as the number of, in fact, even in a professional setting when we're developing tests for professions, as far as the number of items that will be coming out from each of the contents will also be made known in your test blueprint. By the time you are done, if a person who may not necessarily be present at the time when you design that blueprint, test blueprint, would see at a glance, one, the number of the number of topics, or you like to say contents, that the test will be testing, or the exam will be examining people on. And also, he or she will be able to see how many items you will be having in that test in general. If there are 200, it will be seen. If they are 500, if they are 100, whatever number that they are, will also be seen. There is also one of the things that is looked upon for the educational system, for instance. You have what we refer to as the cognitive levels that the test is addressing. Of course, looking at some of the instances when we prepare test blueprints for a school system, especially the high school environment, we make sure that 6 cognitive levels are taken care of or taken note of. We look at knowledge, we look at application, we look at analysis, we look at synthesis, we look at evaluation, and the likes. At least 6 of them. These also ensure that you do not address only one aspect of the cognitive level over another. But for the professional setting, we pay attention generally to, knowledge, skills. This to bring to the fore what and what does the practitioner in that particular professional field, what are the things he or she is supposed to know, and then what are the skills he or she is supposed to be able to exhibit. These are addressed in the test blueprints. Okay, the next is after you have taken care of your you have taken care of test blueprints, you move over then to item writing. And then, of course, after you finish writing your items, you go over to item review. Now, item writing can be seen, it can be defined as the process of making sure that individual items of a test are developed. Okay, in your test, you could make your tests to take different forms, different formats. But if you are a professional credentialing organization and you are looking to test people in your profession from across, let me say from across, different locations, and then you have your test on the internet, I think one of the easiest way that you can test people under such conditions will be the use of the multiple choice form of test. One of the advantages, or let me list out some of the advantages that the multiple choice form of test has. Firstly, it is able to cover a large content. This is because the responses that are expected of the testees is quite very simple or quite very short, because in the first place, for a multiple choice test, testees do not write extensively. They do not express themselves extensively in their attempt to solve the task that your item or that your test is expecting of them. Other than to select an option, I think that is all that is required as far as a multiple choice test is concerned. All right, so because just because they do not need to express themselves extensively, and they are only expected to write, to make a choice out of a list that you are provided, you can make as many questions, as many items as you wish. And because of that, you are able to cover all, if you desire, all the topics that you intend to test them on. This is the advantage it has. Unlike the essay type, where the testee will be asked a limited, number of questions. This is based on the fact that he needs a long time to be able to express himself and bring his or her point to the table. So in a way that the examiner would be satisfied with, to the point that he or she will award him, the number of scores that are reasonable in commensuration with the answer supply. All right. So another thing is objective, multiple choice test is very, very objective. If the correct response to an answer, to a question is option A, anyone who picks that option will get the full marks for it. And anyone who fails to pick the correct option will be given 0 marks. There is no room for awarding partial scores in objective tests. So these two things would be one of the, some of the things that are the advantages that a multiple choice test brings to the table. Next is setting, standard setting and hot score determination. This simply could be seen as the process of bringing together a group of subject matter experts, people who are knowledgeable and experienced in that field, to sit down and take a look at the test, having taken the test themselves, and then agree on the minimum level of knowledge and skills that are required for someone to be deemed to have passed that particular exam. For the person who has taken that test to be deemed to be qualified to practice in that profession, in as much as a professional, a professional certification is involved. So you bring subject matter experts together, and they sit down and they determine what is the minimum level of knowledge and skills that a person seeking to practice in that field is supposed to possess. Then we have the next one, which is the administration of the test itself and scoring. There are various forms, various methods that could be used in administering a test. The very common one is the paper type administration. However, as I mentioned earlier, for a professional exam that you hope to have as many candidates taking the exam from all over the world or all over the country is concerned, you are likely expected to make your test one that is available on the internet and that is also able to provide scores to the testees as soon as they are done taking that test. And such administration definitely will require some level of proctoring, just to ensure that that same test and even the scores that will be generated from the test are reliable, accurate, and fair. So this is what you do in test administration. So these points that we brought forward are the basic steps that are involved in examination development process. So if you are looking into developing an examination for your credential, you please bear in mind that at least these are some of these are the basic steps that are involved in examination development process. Next, we would like to look then at the tests items themselves. What a test item is, and then I use the word anatomy, or if you'd like to say the parts of a test item. The first is the stem. First of all, an item is a unit of an exam which is designed to test or to elicit information regarding the knowledge and skills of a person who has presented himself to take that particular exam. So for a multiple choice test, which is the one we're addressing more, especially because we have said that it is probably the easiest way you can cover a whole lot of content and then do a very objective scoring. It refers to the statement or a leading statement that an item has. It is that one that contains the task that is expected of a testee to tackle. If you ask a student that is studying electronics, if you ask him if you just say, which of the following is the definition for diode, for instance, that's part of the test that presents the task, or let me say that part of the item that presents the task to the testee is what we refer to as the STEM. At all times, this is, you know, the definition for it. Of course, so you can come up with any other word, any other sort of words you would use to describe it. But eventually, you will arrive at the fact that the part of a test that represents a task is what is referred to as this STEM. This can be in just words. It can be graphically, presented. It can be tables. It must be presented in a way that the testee is able to clearly understand what the task is expecting him to do. Then the next part of a test item is what is referred to as the key. Now, the key is simply the correct response. You have a list of options, or we also call them alternatives in a test. Option A, option B, option C, option D, to as many options that you have the time and the resources to include in your test. All of those are referred to as options, including the key itself. All of them are referred to as options or alternatives. Now, in the alternatives that you are presented, only but one is supposed to be the correct response. That one that is the correct response is referred to as the key in a test. The next is distractors. The distractors are those other possible answers or possible options or possible alternatives that you have supplied in your test items that are clearly incorrect. Now, there is one of the things I like to bring to the fore each time a discussion on item generation or test item development is brought to the table, is the fact that your distractors should not only be wrong, but they should possess the capacity to make someone who has not mastered that content to select them for their answer. What I mean by that is, your answer, your distractors should obviously be wrong. However, they should look as if they were the correct ones to someone who has not mastered that content. Now, in a school setting, for instance, a person who, let's say, did not attend a class when the professor was presenting or teaching that particular topic and has not read any material relating to that topic. However, is a student in that particular classroom. The instructor should make him or her believe that it is the correct option. All right, so this is one of the ways you can make sure that your distractors work very well. And to come up with distractors, I think one of the best things to do is you assemble a group of people who are within the population that should be taking that test. You will make them take the test. You would just have only the stems of your questions and ask them to write out the correct answers for the questions or the items that you have. Now, obviously, a lot of folks will supply to you some options that are not right. But for the mere fact that they are, they are members of that class or a school setting, or that they are practitioners, they are professionals in that particular industry. who probably have been trained and may have done some level of practice, even though they may not have been as experienced as you expect. Whatever answer they supply to you, such answers, you can keep them aside, and you may like to take a tally to see how many of them were, how many are, okay, which of the, let me put it this way, which three were suggested the most by your SMEs or your students or whatever group of people you are dealing with. It is those ones that you are now going to use as your distractors. For the mere fact that they brought them, they supplied them, and not only one person or two or three persons makes us suggestions, it tells you that if a test, if that particular item is presented to them as, you know, the distractors, there is a high possibility that some of the testees will go for such options. I should have been asking, are we hearing me? Are you with me? Can somebody give me feedback if you are still?
Yeah, you're good, Professor. Yep.
All right. Thank you very much. Just to make sure that I didn't go offline. All right. So, okay, I have talked about distractors. Now, we'll look, I have mentioned earlier also something about the options, or you say the alternatives. And I say that options or alternatives refers to all the possible answers, including the right ones and the wrong ones in the test item that you have before your testees. Okay. So there is a format that there are some things that should be considered when writing a test item. This is important because if you are a credentialing manager, when you are briefing your subject matter experts, it is necessary that, let me first say that it is possible that some of them are not expert psychometricians or may not have been trained by an expert psychometrician regarding the way test items are supposed to be written. Now, it is important to note that a multiple choice item can be written either in a closed stem form or in an open stem form. What do we mean by a closed stem form? A test item that is close-ended asks a complete question. It makes a complete sentence and ends with a question mark. It ends with a question mark. An example of such is what you have on the screen, a question from electronics. He said, what is the term used to describe a circuit that has two stable states and is used to store information? This is a clear and a complete sense. Everything that is expected from expected of the testee has been placed in the step. There are no omissions made. It is only for the testee to be able to identify the correct response from the list supplied. There is one other thing that we do, unless I missed that out, even though I didn't pen it down. In my organization, the National Examinations Council of Nigeria, where I work, the options of a test, they are written in a way that they are serialized. This one we're having here may not exactly be serialized just because oscillator should have come as option C, while switch was supposed to would have come as option D. Not that this have any particular, it has any particular implication, but we are of the opinion that it will help you, the test developer, to avoid using only one particular type of option. Let's say A for all your keys. And if that happens, there's what we refer to as response sets. A testee now, without even reading your stem, assumes that maybe, let's say you have 50 items. By the way, in my organization, we use 5 options. And so if you have 50 items, the testee will come and assume that, okay, the first 10 are option A, the next 10 from 11 to 20 are option B, and so on and so forth. So it helps you to ensure that you avoid such kind of bottlenecks. So when you serialize them, even if they end up falling on option A, that would be what I call an act of God, because you didn't set out to present them that way. And of course, it's practically impossible for all your first 10 items to all have the same option, just because you are trying to serialize them, especially because they are not all from the same content or topic. All right. There is the second thing, which is the open stem, or if you like to say open-ended stem. This type of stem comes in a form that towards the end, there is a fill in the blank space. There is a space whereby a testee is expected to pick one of the options that you have supplied and fill into that space for the stem to make a complete sentence and a complete sense. All right, so this example says the process of converting an analog signal to a digital signal is called dash. So if you pick whatever option you pick here now, it tells you, it makes that sense to be complete, to be a complete sense. The only thing that will be left is if the option you have selected is the correct one or not. We are still going to, in the other next sessions we're going to have, we're still going to take a look at some of the things that might also be needed as far as the test construction is concerned. For instance, you are encouraged to avoid as much as possible a situation whereby the key stands out differently. What I mean by that is a situation whereby you have responses, let me say options in your test item that come with more than one words, maybe 2 words or 3 words, or even almost a complete sentence. Okay, do not, in constructing such items, in bringing up your options, do not make the key only 1 or 2 words, whereas all other options are having 5 words or 6 words, as the case may be. For the mere fact that it is the only one that does not have as many words as others. Some persons may say this one that looks different might be the correct option without actually being a master of that particular content. So these are some of the issues that we need to want to bring to the table as far as item construction or item development or design development is concerned. At this junction, I want to pause and give room for a few minutes so that we can, ask questions and probably make observations as the case may be. So you might unmute your mic if you have anything to say at this